I'm of the opinion that Meghan won't set foot in the UK ever again, because I just don't think she wants to have anything to do at all with this country.
Hello and welcome. I'm Matt Wilkinson, Royal Editor of the Sun newspaper, and this is our show, Royal Exclusive. My guest today has been covering the beat for more than 3 decades and used to do my job, so hopefully he can teach me a thing or two. He is Royal reporting legend Charlie Rae. Charlie?
Hello, Matt. I'm not sure I'll be able to teach you very much, to be perfectly honest. You seem to be doing okay with so many splashes just lately.
Well, I'm all ears because you, obviously, when you were reporting on The Sun, for instance, royal stories were on the front page that you were writing, and we were selling like 4 million copies a day. There has always been an insatiable appetite for royal stories. And on Friday today, our front page is a story about the King. We know about his health issues, but he's basically raring to go. The treatment's going well, and he's supercharging his aides to say, sort my diary out, and I'd like to go to Australia. Now, I talk back to your time when you say 3 decades reporting on the royals. You've been to Australia several times. How many times have you been there?
About 3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
They're tough tours, but they're also important for the royals to go there to Australia.
Well,
is that right?
They are very, very important because it's a Commonwealth country. And so it gets the links between the UK or the monarchy with the Commonwealth country closer together. The Commonwealth countries love a royal tour, despite what we keep on seeing and hearing about. I mean, Australia has fortunately put the decision of going republic on the back burner already. It's said in January that it wasn't going to be discussing it shortly, so we don't have that issue. But it is important for the King to meet all the various people and his peoples of Australia. Yes, they are tough. One thing I will tell you, though, which is the great thing, is you are so far ahead, to get your stories back, filed back to the UK. You've got so much time on your hands because you're practically a good 12 hours ahead. And it's only when one sub decides to ring you up in the middle of the night because he's got one sort of silly query. That's the only problem. But for the royal and for yourself, you're talking about, it's best part of 21 hours to get there. It's a long, long flight, and especially if people are sitting in the economy. The King won't be sitting in the economy, of course, but he'll be in total luxury. But he would like to do 6 or 7 jobs a day, which is what his usual job, which is his usual tally on any royal tour. I'm not sure whether he'll be able to manage that on this tour, because he's a guy who's recovering or still battling away the cancer. And so I think it will be very much dependent on his own doctors saying to him, you're going to have to take it a little bit easy. He's like a bull in a china shop when it comes to work. He's still working. He's reading all his government papers. I think Camilla joked once that she had to go into his office with a big sign that says, "Stop working, you need a rest." But it's going to be a tough old tour.
He's, the situation with the King at the moment is obviously, yes, he is still having treatment.
Sure.
But he wants to go back to work as much as possible. Easter Sunday was a success. You obviously worked with the Queen, reported on the Queen so many times. Her mantra was she needed to be seen
Correct.
to be believed. Is that still the case for the King?
I think it is still the case for the King. He needs to be seen to be believed. We've moved on quite a bit from a royal family that was quite secretive. Now, it's a little bit more open. There's fewer of them, so the magic is still there, but it needs to be seen by more people. Given, of course, we've got this social media, which we never really had in my day. But you've got social media, and there's always going to be someone commenting, rightly or wrongly, about some aspect of the royal family.
You talk about the King, as I've been on tours with him, smaller ones to Europe, and they're exhausting.
Yeah.
It's 5 or 6, sometimes 7 or 8 jobs a day. What is it about his work ethic? Do you think he's been frustrated for the last couple of months because he's not been able to get out and do work? Why is it that he wants to work so hard?
Well, I think that's his raison d'etre, if you like, all the way through. even when he was Prince of Wales, he worked hard. He's now king. He works hard. And I think it's really brassed him off, the fact he's got to fight this disease, which has meant that the amount of work that he does is cut right back. So we're looking at behind the scenes. There's only been 2 or 3 receptions with various people, which he doesn't want to cut back. But you printed a list of items that are on his calendar. Now, the items that are on his calendar, the forthcoming items that are on his calendar, to him, are extremely important. You know, it's not all fun and frivolity. You've got Tripping the Colour. You've got Royal Ascot. You've got the Garter Ceremony. You've got Australia. You've got all these sort of things that are coming up, and the D-Day. Don't forget D-Day. I mean, that is going to be monumental. 80 years of that, and he's really, really into that sort of stuff. There's no doubt about that.
He needs to be there at these kind of events, and so I think he's going to have a couple of weeks up at Burke Hall.
Correct.
Which again is another positive sign, because if he was, you know, we can't speculate about his treatment and stuff like that, but he's been down in London for the last 2 months because he needed to be near the hospital.
Sure.
But by going up to Scotland for a couple of weeks for his anniversary, that's another good sign that things are getting better.
It is. It's the 19th anniversary, if I got my maths right.
Yeah.
You got there. It's one of the weddings I attended, not as an official guest, just on the roof.
On the roof?
Yeah, we were on the roof opposite of at Windsor, where he got married in the registry office, and you know, we were watching it all coming together. You know, we don't really get invited all that much into these places, but you know what the rules are.
You banished the press to the roof opposite the
Well, that was one of the places that we were able to see things properly. But him going up there for his 19th wedding anniversary is a positive sign. There's no doubt about that. And I suppose that if he's up there, if there's any problem, the doctors may well have to come to him. And I'm sure the Royal Doctor will be around anyway. There is a Royal Doctor in Scotland, so there's not going to be any dramas.
Excellent. Now we talk about the amount of challenges that Charles has had to, or the King has gone through, particularly the cancer that he's so bravely fighting and really facing down, and you know, the positivity that he has. He wants to, you know, carry out these events. But one of the main challenges to his reign has been his brother, Prince Andrew. And Netflix, yet again, have come out, 'cause obviously after, you know, their The Crown and the series with Meghan and Harry. We now have Scoop, which we've seen. We've managed to quickly watch before we sat down today. It's a good drama. Do we need this drama? Does Charles the King, does he need, you know, more scandal from his brother, or has he had enough of this with Andrew? I
don't think the King and the rest of the royal family need it, but I think we do, because I certainly, and I'm sure many others as well, have always been fascinated how Newsnight got this story. And I have to tell you that I think Billie Piper plays a blinder as Sam McAllister. Now, she's the producer who went out of her way to court the palace. Keely Hawes as Amanda Thirsk, his private secretary, is brilliant. She performs it brilliantly well, like a startled rabbit caught in the headlights most of the time. Gillian Anderson as Emily Maitlis is also, you know, very, very good. I think it is an excellent, narrative of what actually went on. And there's one scene, I'm not going to spoil it for everybody, but there is one scene in it which just sums up Prince Andrew to a T, and that is when the Emily Maitlis and Sam McAllister are sitting opposite Andrew, trying to encourage him to do this interview. And he suddenly says towards the end, he says, "I don't know why people are so fascinated by my friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. After all, I knew Jimmy Savile far more." And you just think, what? Why would you say that to journalists, at a start off? But it's an excellent program. And I have to say to you that, people are going to say, oh, this is going to drive another nail in Andrew's coffin. I'm not that sure that there's much room for any more nails in that coffin, And I think people have got to realise, because we keep seeing him at maybe the Easter ceremony or something else to do with the family or whatever, and they think, oh, he's on his way back. He's never coming back. He's never going to do another royal job ever again. You know, and I just wish people would stop just jumping on a bandwagon because they saw him leading the royals down to the east, one of the services. The only reason he was in front is because he was out the door first. It's that simple. It's not any rocket science. The monarch always comes in, or the Queen always comes in at the end. It's always the rules.
Another headache, obviously, for the King is his son. In California. Now, we believe that Harry and Meghan might be coming over for an Invictus Games 10-year church service. Look, what do you think about this? They're more than a headache, aren't they, to the King at the moment?
Huge headache, absolute huge headache. You know, you don't know whether you can trust. I'm pretty sure they know that they can't trust Harry and Meghan. I'm pretty certain that Harry is going to be here because it's Invictus Games and it's his baby. So I'm sure he will be at the church service. Whether Meghan comes, I'm not terribly sure. I'm of the opinion that Meghan won't set foot in the UK ever again. And then there's the other big question, if she does come, and if I'm wrong, if she does come, will she bring the children?
Why don't you think she'll ever step foot in this country?
Because I just don't think she wants to have anything to do at all with this country. Look, let me tell you, I was a big supporter of Meghan right at the start. I thought, I liked the cut of her jib, everything. I thought she was fantastic. And if you saw her with Harry on some of those walkabouts that they did and some of those early jobs before the wedding, the people were thronging the streets. There wasn't anybody shouting any racial slurs or anything like that. It was all joy because they were seeing the new young couple, the new future for the monarchy. Not going to be king or queen, but there were going to be key aides all the way through. And they were the ones who decided, well, Meghan was the one who decided she didn't want to be on this road. I don't believe that she understood the pecking order of the royal family. You've got the monarch, you've got the Prince of Wales, and then you've got everyone else under that. She wanted to be the star. And I think it was that simple that she thought she just picked up her toys and decided to go off to America.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see what kind of public reaction they would get. I remember at the Jubilee, I think Harry and Meghan came back and they attended St Paul's Cathedral for a church service, and I was there. There was some cheers, there was some boos. People were quite respectful because it was, you know, the Queen's Jubilee. But you're right. I mean, Meghan didn't seem to show much interest, I suppose, she didn't give it enough time, maybe, to actually be a working royal.
I don't actually think she'll get that huge a reception from the public if she does come back, and I think that may well be one of the factors that she may well be considering. Yeah, as I say, I might be wrong. She might just brass it out and come over. Best of luck to her if she does.
Now, obviously, Meghan and Harry have talked about the wedding and the joy that happened there. But it's actually 20 years this week since the news has broken that Prince William had a new girlfriend, which was then Catherine Middleton. I get a lot of comments, by the way, on this show on YouTube where I get told off for saying Kate. So I'm going to try now to call her Catherine.
I'm with you. I think you should call her Catherine.
I call her Catherine, give her that respect. But it's 20 years. Now, you would have been working then when... what was it like? Because they met at St Andrews. Say, 20 years ago, the news broke that they were a couple.
They did meet at St Andrews, and St Andrews was a no-go area, in effect, for us, the newspapers.
And that was new at the time, was it?
It was completely new. It was an agreement that was reached with the palace that he wouldn't be hassled. There were some paparazzi who did go on the streets and try and get them, but largely he was left alone. But we did get to hear that he'd got this new girlfriend. And this new girlfriend had actually moved into the house, was one of the flatmates of Prince William. There were two others, two guys, and Catherine had moved in as well. And then you got to hear about this new girlfriend. And of course, as you do with a new girlfriend, you went doolally and you tried to find out everything you could about her. But they were largely left alone for a very, very long time. So they had plenty of time to get to know each other. Unlike, of course, his mother and the Prince of Wales, the then Prince of Wales. So, I mean, she was thrown right into it all.
Yeah, I mean, the difference there was, I remember seeing for both Diana and Catherine, photographers chasing her down the street. But I think with Catherine, it was later in her relationship. But reporting on William and Catherine at the time, do you think reporting of royal couples has changed since then, or it changed since Diana and Charles, and then to Catherine and William, didn't it?
I think it has changed, a great deal. Some would say for the better. You have to remember as well that when the royal women came, women came into the royal family, like Diana and the Duchess of York, Sarah the Duchess of York, they were just thrown in. They were not given any help or anything at all. The difference between them and Catherine and Meghan was immense. Catherine was helped as well. William made it clear right at the start, don't mess her about. And then he's telling these royal aides, don't mess her around, help her. And so he put his foot down, unlike Charles with Diana, unlike Andrew with Fergie. And so it was the same help that Meghan received as well. You got Meghan, we know that there were stories around about the Queen offering Lady Susan Hussey, one of her ladies in waiting at the time, to help show her the ropes. She was an American. I think everybody was conscious what happened with the last American who tried to come into the royal family. That ended in an abdication. We don't want to, we wanted to give this girl a chance. She had everything, really. She was American. She was an actress. She was mixed race. So she had all the good, and she was good looking. Let's not make any bones about it. She was a cracking looking girl. So she had all the right attributes to be a good member of the royal family, and she blew it at the end. And Catherine hasn't blown it. Look where Catherine is now. I know she's battling cancer just like the king, but she's been a huge asset to that royal family, given what's been going on for the last 20 years.
Well, William and Catherine's relationship and marriage is one of the rare success stories over the last 30 or 40 years, along with Charles and Camilla, which has been a wonderful marriage since they've been together. It's one of those ones that have gone really well. Do you think, from your reporting experience or from what you've seen as well, whether Meghan or Catherine were treated differently, or whether the two marriages and relationships, because obviously you pointed out that Meghan and Harry got together really quickly. We were asked to, the journalists were asked to step back a little bit, and when Catherine and William got together, were the two women that married into the royal family, marrying these princes, were they treated differently by journalists and by the public?
I don't think they were. Not at the start. I don't think they were at all. I think, as I said earlier on, when you saw Meghan with Harry, when they were out and about, the crowds were 10, 12 deep. It was back to the good old days of, royal walkabouts. It was fantastic. It only started to go wrong, when you started to hear that there was a few strops being thrown by Meghan. Did she make Catherine cry? Did she make Charlotte cry? You've got to accept as well that any bride's going to be right up there. The nerves are going to be, razor sharp. So you've got to take that into account. But I think it all went wrong when they decided that they were going to up sticks and go. I think it's just that simple.
Could you ever see a world where the Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, are lauded in the same way that William and Catherine are, that they're an integral part of the royal family, and people, really love them in the same way they do for William and Catherine?
I think that ship has sailed. I think they were lauded at one time. I think, there was great hopes for the pair of them coming into the royal family. And given that, the problems that she had with her own father, that the King, then Prince of Wales, walked her halfway down the aisle as well, was really touching. Can't believe it could have happened for Diana or Sarah Ferguson. So I think she was given every help and everything that she could possibly have to make her route into the royal family as clean and as clear as possible. And as I say, I think she just threw it in their faces at the end.
Yeah, well, it is remarkable. 20 years now, as I say, of William. Since the news was broken of William and Catherine, William and Harry.
Yeah.
So when you were working, did you get to meet them very often?
Yeah.
What were they like as boys? And do you think that could you ever see this split, this dispute that they have ever happening?
Never in a month of Sundays would I have said that they were going to fall out. Harry, when he was much younger, when about 5 or 6, whenever he was with his mother, he used to give the waiting photographers the fingers. He used to stick 2 fingers up, and he was always chastised by Diana because he was a cheeky chappy. As the boys got older, and I've seen them together, I've seen them on the ski slopes, they got on very, very well. And this is why I think that one of the things that Harry said in his book Spare, about his father, was so wrong. I mean, I watched the then prince, with his children, and he was as loving to those boys as was Diana. Diana was much more extrovert. Once in Canada, the boys were on the Royal Yacht Britannia. They just arrived. Diana and Charles had just finished a job. Diana walks up the gangplank. Charles is very polite. He stands there and says hello to the captain, the first officer, the cook, the first mate, whatever. Diana ignores them all and goes, runs practically down the gangplank with her arms wide open, and the boys rush up to her and give her that's the picture that made, the newspapers all over the world. And poor old Charles is left looking like a lemon, as he was in India when he didn't take her to the Taj Mahal and left her sitting alone there while he was addressing a business meeting 500 miles away. He just didn't get those sort of things right. But the boys themselves were always very pleasant. I mean, I was there the day that William passed his driving test, which was great fun. And so we got to see them on special occasions, and they were always reasonably friendly. They'd all say hello. I mean, I remember in Canada when they both went to when they were in Canada, it was like the Beatles had arrived.
This was just shortly after Diana died, wasn't it?
This was before. This was way before.
Oh, right,
this was way before Diana died. Was it before Diana? I'm sorry. Well, whenever it was, the boys. It must have been after Diana died. The boys went up, and they were walking up to an event, and the screams. It was like the Beatles. It was just pop stars stuff. And I was behind them, and Harry kept saying to William, raise your hand again and see what happens. Every time, William was like an Ottoman, waving his hand. And of course, all these girls were just trying to rush forward. It was a fantastic set. And they were really, really close. And this is what makes it so sad that they're now so far apart. I mean, it's not if, but when William becomes king, I always believed that Harry would be one of his top advisors. I think that's out the window now.
Yeah.
Right out the window.
It should be his wingman.
That
was his thing.
And that's what Diana always wanted, the boys to remain as close as possible. They had each other, and it was them against the rest of the world. But of course now, it's not going to happen.
Very sad. One thing I was going to say is that I attended the late Queen's funeral, and I remember being there and thinking about journalists like you that had worked on The Sun for so many years that kind of didn't get the opportunity to put a byline on or to attend the funeral and report on it. However, one of my regrets was that I never, because of COVID and because of her ill health, I never really got many jobs with the late Queen Elizabeth II. But you would have done. You would have, when you were reporting for The Sun and for the other newspapers and commentating, you would have spoke to the Queen many times, have you? Or...
I did, and it was always fantastic chats. But my first meeting with the Queen went terribly. It was in Germany many years ago, the late 80s, where we were in a financial crisis. The pound was worth nothing against the then Deutsche Mark, and we'd gone on this tour, and there was this huge reception, as there always is for a royal tour. And I was with another royal reporter from another newspaper, and this was my very first meeting with a member of the royal family. And this bloke was telling me, like, we stand in little groups of 6 or 7. The Queen comes round. There will be a Foreign Office official there. He or she are just there just to move the Queen on if the conversation gets a bit fruity or, a bit off. I said, okay. And remember, the Queen will approach it. She will hold out her hand first. You shake it. She speaks first. The usual thing. She's got many icebreakers, like, do you come here often? Have you travelled far? Oh, aren't the flowers lovely? It's this sort of opening gambits that the monarch usually does. So I said to this bloke, I said, oh, that's fine. Okay, that's really kind. So I'm a bit nervous. So they come into the room. It's a huge ballroom type. It's not just a small room. So there's all these people, all these little groups around. And the monarch comes up. And this bloke, he's first. And so the Queen holds out her hand. And as he's holding her hand, he suddenly says to her, do you know, ma'am, you cannot buy you cannot change the good old British pound in this country because of the financial crisis. What do you think of that? With that, the Foreign Office aide put his arm in the back of the Queen and moved her on. And I'm just standing there like a lemon as they moved on to the next group. And I looked at him and I said, I thought you said, yes. He says, but I thought I'd try and get a reaction. It didn't work, did it? I said, no, it didn't. You've just robbed me of my meeting with the Queen. But other times have been much more fun. I mean, South Africa, when she was having the official welcome in South Africa, there was a sort of 21-gun salute. And she was standing with Tambo and Becky, and we were on a sort of a concrete dais just opposite, quite a bit opposite. What we didn't understand, or we didn't know at that time, was that the guns for the 21-gun salute were underneath this dais. So when they went off, we had the smoke come up, covered us all in smoke. We couldn't see anything. Photographers certainly couldn't take any pictures. There was nothing. So that was ruined. And later on that day, we went to a reception with the Queen, and she came into the room and started chatting away. She said, how did you enjoy the reception that I got? And we said, well, she says, well, you see, I knew what was going to happen. She said, because I saw the rehearsal the day before from my room here, and I saw all the smoke come up. And she said, I've often wondered what the best way would be to get rid of you all, and I've just found the exact way of doing it. Just cover you in smoke and puff, you disappear. She was laughing all the way. I mean, she's great fun. Really, really, really good fun. The last time I met the Queen was in 2014, and she was the patron of the journalist charity. And I was asked to go there with a whole load of other journalists as well. And one of the journalists that was there was a guy called Harry Arnold, a very famous journalist, used to do your job, used to do the job that we both did. And we knew then he was dying of cancer. And I took it upon myself to speak to one of the aides of the Queen and said, look, this is probably going to be Harry's last outing at all about anything. Is it possible the Queen could stop in the receipt as she comes round? She said, what are we going to do? And all of a sudden, the Queen came down. She stopped in front of us, hands come out, shook our hands and everything else. And then she said, it's remarkable that the journalist charity is now 150 years old. And I just said, off the cuff, I said, yeah, it's almost as old as Harry here. So we all started to laugh. And she looked at me and she said in her best Dick Emery voice, he was a comedian of many, many moons ago, oh, you are awful. But it was a really nice thing for her to do. She didn't have to do it. It was nice for her to do it. And there's one little postscript, and that was a few months later, Harry is in a hospice and the nurses are coming round and they're doing one of those dementia checks, do you know who the Prime Minister is? What date is it? Do you know who the monarch is? And Harry says, yes, Queen Elizabeth II. I was with her a few weeks ago, and we had a great chat. And of course, the nurses are, I think he's starting to go now, And it was only when Mary, his wife, brought in the photograph of Harry and myself with the Queen that they realised that he actually did meet the Queen.
You met her many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I mean, the interaction between journalists and members of the royal family may have been more of it back in the 90s and the noughties, do you think? Because we're often kept at hand's length these days.
The only real chance we ever got of an interaction with a member of the royal family was at a reception. That was a proper chat. I mean, Diana was another one who she loved to chat, she loved to gossip. So they were always good, fun events. Not so good with Prince Philip. Prince Philip didn't like journalists, and he was very gruff and offhand with journalists, which is fair enough.
Just on Australia to finish off, if you want. So you went there 3 or 4 times. Who did you go to Australia with?
Well, the Duchess of York at the time, Fergie, Charles and the Queen. I think Charles twice, and the Queen. Yeah.
I mean, they, as I say, they are hugely important to the Commonwealth, hugely important to the King, but really, really tiring and really grueling. How do you think the King will get on, on this kind of trip? Is it something that we should be pushing him to do, or from your experience, from your trips that you've been on, is it something that he will succeed at? Do you think?
I think he will succeed if he goes. And as I said earlier on, I think it's very much dependent on his advice from his doctors and the rest of the family, because they will want to make sure that he is on top of his game as best as possible, given he's been fighting cancer. And we don't know what stage the cancer is at now. So we don't know whether he's finished with the treatment, or whether there's still a bit more of it to go, or whatever. But I suspect that, come towards the October, that the doctors themselves will give the okay or nay. He will want to do it because these tours are very important. He's 76 or 75. He's 75. So there's not going to be many more lengthy tours that are going to be on his horizon, just the same as the lengthy tours for the Queen, weren't, towards the end.
Well, thanks, Charlie.
It's a pleasure.
I really appreciate chatting to you. I've had a really good half an hour going through all this. Right, that's all we have time for today. However, me and Charlie are now going to go down the pub, and he's going to tell me what really happens on a royal tour. But thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week with a new, fresh guest. And if you like this content, if you want more, then please click subscribe for all the royal news. Thank you for watching.